This is the Leadership Done Right podcast, episode 33.
Welcome to the Leadership Done Right podcast, where it's all about becoming the leader you are meant to be. And now your host, Brandon Jones.
Hello and welcome to the Leadership Done Right podcast, episode 33. Our guest today is the president of SmartChic. She provides keynote speaking and premier mentoring for men and women in the areas of personal development, branding, and business strategy. Her passion is to get people laser focused, providing them with extraordinary motivation and smart strategies so they achieve their goals and dreams. She achieved high-level positions in the Connecticut prison system, became a private investigator in Las Vegas, Nevada, ran security and corporate investigation units in the hotel, casino, resort industry, and is now a successful entrepreneur running her motivational, speaking, and mentoring company, SmartChic. Our guest today has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and psychology and a master's degree in counseling psychology. She is in 5 books, co-authoring 4 books, and was honored to be one of 100 women from around the world interviewed for the international bestseller, Common Threads Empowerment. Our guest is passionate about live streaming and broadcasts on Periscope at least twice per day. She is also a regular contributor to Good Day Sacramento. She believes you have to go for it in life and do it in a smart way by surrounding yourself with the best people. Anything is possible when the right people work together. We connected about 4 years ago through a common group, and since that time, I have been learning from her experience, knowledge, and wisdom. I can say that she does great work and is really passionate about helping others. Our guest today is Cynthia Bazin. Cynthia, welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to be here with you, Brandon.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm glad to have you. So now, can you kind of fill in some of those gaps and give us a glimpse of your personal life?
Okay, so started out with living out on the East Coast, and so you mentioned that I worked with the Connecticut Department of Corrections. So grew up in a very, very small town in Massachusetts called Sutton, Massachusetts. Graduated with a total of 40 people in my high school class.
Oh, wow,
many
okay.
years ago. So yeah, very, very small. And you know what, just love the East Coast, went to school in Massachusetts, like you said, with my undergrad, worked in Connecticut for a long time, and about 15 years ago, moved out west for career opportunities and stuff like that. So all I can say, you know, to kind of add to what you already read in my bio is that has been an intriguing ride
Yeah.
in leadership. So I'm really excited to talk with you about, you know, the questions you're going to ask me today. So.
Well, that's awesome. So there were career opportunities that brought you out west. Was it kind of early on in your career? I noticed from your bio, it sounds like it was earlier on in your career. You took the jump to go out west and...
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I took the leap. So I worked with the Department of Corrections for about a decade. And during that time, and this is going way back, you know, there were some really awesome opportunities in the private industry for investigations and security and stuff like that. So I had a couple of friends that lived out west, and I always wanted to move to a warmer climate. And so I kind of flew out a few times and kind of tinkered around to see like what type of opportunities were out there. And an awesome opportunity came up initially with Sprint. We had to make a decision, right, as a leader, like, what are you going to do? Are you going to stay? Are you going to try something different? Are you going to up level? So I decided to take the leap and move out west to a warmer climate and try something different, which ended up being a catalyst for many other positions and growth and stuff like that. So probably one of the best decisions I ever made.
Oh, that's awesome. I notice a lot of times when there's an opportunity that comes, if you do everything you can to do the best that you at what you're doing in the moment, then those opportunities come along and you never know where it's going to go from there. But a lot of times it'll take you in a path that you never ever thought would be your eventual outcome. But it always seems to work out really well. So.
Absolutely. And one of the things maybe I'll talk a little bit about during our talk today is that, yeah, always keep your mind open, you know, and try new things and stuff like that, because you just never know, you know, how much growth you can have and how much happier you can become if you're just willing to take a leap, a risk, and try something new.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, in the bio, you have a lot of experience, and you were in the Department of Corrections, and then you got into the investigation unit, and then you kind of took a whole different spin and went into leadership. How did that transition work out, or how did you end up going that route?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I think it's always been a leadership route, because I ended up being in supervisory positions in the Department of Correction, going up the operations route up to captain level and stuff. So that was definitely leadership. I think it's just a switch in leadership to kind of a new lane, or going back towards my original lane. As you mentioned in my bio, I have a master's degree in counseling. So, I did the investigations route for 21 years. And around the 18th year, Brandon, I really started kind of thinking about, and you'll get to this point too at some point in your life, going, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And is this the path I want to continue in on? Your interests kind of shift and change. And I really wanted to get back to kind of my roots as far as mentoring and counseling and stuff like that. So just decided to do a little switch in leadership, but it was a big leap to go into entrepreneurship and decide to do, more of the mentoring and the counseling part of leadership.
Okay, that's really neat. I agree with you that there's probably everybody has that point in their career or in their life where they say, what do I really want to do? A lot of times you go with what's the best opportunity, either right out of college or whatever, your case may be. But then everybody seems to have that turning point where they have to decide what they really want to do for the long term, I think. And I like that you went for your passion and got back into your coaching and mentoring.
And you know what? Throughout the years, people will find that, it will shift. And so don't be afraid and say, geez, I've been doing this for so long, I have to stay on this path. Is that, that's the beautiful thing about life, is that we can shift, we can change, we have choice, as long as you're doing it smart, which is what I do. The mentoring process for companies and businesses. You want to make sure you make the right transition in a smart way, but don't ever just wish that you want to do something. If there's something that's kind of burning inside of you, definitely let's come up with a plan to get you there. Yeah,
absolutely. I really like that. Now, let's kind of shift gears and we've already been talking about it a little bit already, but I want to kind of talk a little bit more on leadership. And as a leader, there's challenges and there's definitely opportunities for learning. And can you share with us one of your most challenging or difficult leadership experiences and the learning that you gained as a result?
Okay, so this is very timely, Brandon. I was thinking about this question, and that I learned a very big leadership lesson early on in my career with one of the places that I worked, was that I had started off obviously in lower positions and worked my way up to be an investigator in internal affairs. And one of the most difficult things that I had to do as a leader was I had to investigate and interview one of my former bosses that I absolutely loved.
Oh, wow.
He had been accused of harassment.
Okay.
On other team members. And so this particular boss that I had formerly was a mentor, what I mean? Something that I really loved. But I was tasked in saying, listen, no, you know what? This is not going to go to anybody else. I want you to investigate this and make sure you interview him and make sure that the facts come out in this particular investigation. How torturous.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
And having to interview someone that you respected, someone that brought you up in an organization. You need that objective person and go in and interview and, talk to him about some very difficult things, which it ended up being that he had done. And so it was something that he had done wrong. And so he was accused and he was found guilty of harassment. So how does that tie in to difficult leadership experiences? Is that it's one of those things that we all need to think about, is that as we, grow in our leadership, or if you're a young person and you say, yeah, I want to be a leader, I want to go up in this organization, is that I learned early on that leadership isn't all peaches and roses and when times are good. Is that leadership is when you have to do some of the most difficult things and you make a decision, okay, how am I going to do this? You know what I mean? In the most respectful way, right? And how am I going to step up to a challenge? Isn't that true? I mean, leadership is not, you know what, when everything's just going right. It's when something that you have to deal with, that there's a crisis or there's something that's really difficult. How are you going to handle it? That's when true leadership comes out in somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. You brought out a lot of great points there that, it's not easy to be a leader. There's a lot of benefit and there's a lot of, say, growth and opportunity that goes with leadership.
Yes.
But it's like what you said, there's definitely some hard choices that you have to make and hard situations that you have to go through. But I bet that you were a lot better person after going through that. Even though it was as challenging as it was, you were probably a lot better person going through that just because you gained that experience.
Well, absolutely. And, you have to get back to your values, right? So when you're in leadership and you have to go through these challenging things, is that, yes, it was difficult, but at the same time, it was like, okay, I kind of got reflective and I really just said, you know what? This isn't personal, right? This is business. You're going to do it in the most respectful, way and that sort of thing. So, but absolutely that, what I learned is number one, you're going to have to, as a leader, it's not going to get easier sometimes. It's going to get more challenging as you go, up the chain of command or you get into other growth positions. There's such an opportunity in these experiences that, it doesn't matter, what situation you're faced with, what crisis you're faced with, what challenge, is that when you get back true to your values and you treat people with respect, as long as you can put your head on the pillow at the end of the night and say that, you treated people with respect, you communicated with people well, then you're going to get through anything.
Yeah, that's very true. Now, I want to ask, at what point did you decide that you wanted to be a leader? I know you were a leader from early on in your career, and you kind of worked your way up through the correction system. What point did you decide you wanted to be a leader, and why did you make that decision?
Recently I took a trip back east, Brandon, to visit some friends and family, and I'm going to talk more about this person later on, but I was meeting with my old cross-country coach. And to give you an idea of my age is that he knew me when I was 13 years old, and that was about 32 years ago. And we've stayed connected through this entire time. And
awesome.
he had told me, he said, listen, he goes, you were always that person that wanted to help the kids out. As a teenager, if someone was being bullied, you always stood up for them. You always tried to help people as a kid. So I was like, wow, you know what? I didn't even realize I did that, right? So It's really interesting to hear 30-something years later, someone that's known me as a kid and now knows me, where I'm at now, to say, wow, I was actually doing that as a kid.
Yeah.
So in my case, Brendan, I don't even know if I ever said, you know what, I want to be a leader. I think it was just one of those things that I just kind of fell into, that I like to help people.
Yeah.
And that, I enjoyed, lifting people up and that sort of thing. But to answer your question, as far as, in my adult life, it was more for me that I love challenge. I loved, more responsibility. The more stuff, I was always one of those people that I didn't like to sit behind a desk, and just handle paperwork all day.
Yeah.
I loved to be around people. I loved, to accept a challenge. So the positions that kind of were available at that time, obviously, were, you're going to be overseeing, 50, 60 people, and then in some cases, hundreds of people in different organizations. So for me, I think it was, if there was a decision, it was that I really love to inspire people, and I really love to just guide people in the right direction.
Wow, that's really admirable. I know that there's a lot of every leader goes through a different path, and I like that, it sounds like from the very beginning you had a kind of like what you mentioned, an innate desire to help people and to kind of look out for people. And I think that every leader, to some degree or another, has that inside of them. There's some here and there that maybe don't, but everybody, in leadership, it's something where it's a development and it's a growth thing that, but then you said you like the challenges, and definitely there's a lot of opportunity for challenges in leadership. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity to help other people and help them grow. And I like that you point those things out, because I think that's really important. And for any of those listeners out there, leadership is a journey. It's not a destination.
Right. Like leadership, it really isn't. I mean, I've had all the different types of positions in the world, right? And it's like, It really isn't a position. And so people that are listening to this podcast and, saying, oh, you know what, I want to get to this level, right? Is that I just encourage people, not to think of titles, but think of the impact that they can make, right? So leadership really doesn't have a title. And one of my favorite people that I'll mention his name later on, Robin Sharma, is that, leadership has no titles. He talks about all the time. And I truly believe that a lot more today than when I was in my younger years, is that it's really about the impact that you can make on people's lives. And that does have to do about guiding people, supporting people, inspiring people. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. Now, what was your most recent light bulb moment or moment of clarity relating to leadership?
Have you watched the news, Brandon, lately?
Yeah.
Just recently with, the last month or so, with all of the different allegations of harassment, people in leadership positions, people in high profile positions that, it's coming out. That, there's allegations of harassment, allegations of sexual assault and stuff like that. I think for not just myself, I think a lot of people is that, just shaking my head like, wow, how could this be? So the light bulb moment is this. I think we all need to check ourselves, in our leadership, not having to do with this particular issue, hopefully. Yeah. Most of us don't have to check ourselves on that. But this is a good opportunity for companies. This is a good opportunity for everybody to get humble. Yeah. And for people to get back to the basics in companies. It's just amazing to me that these things can happen and these things can progress. And so I just wonder, who is not stepping up in their leadership? Have they seen something that maybe they didn't say, right? Yeah. But even if they're in high, level positions of power, I think that the recent light bulb moment is just really, we need to step it up as leaders and, be willing to stand up for people, be willing to say something if you see something that's not quite right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really sad what's been happening lately, but one thing you pointed out, I've heard the saying that's see something, say something. Don't just let things go by just because it's always been done that way or you got there and that's what was going on. There's nothing wrong with standing up and saying something about something. And with all the different trainings and everything else, I like that it's really important now more than ever that leaders need to step up and be a leader, I guess you could say.
Exactly. Can I just kind of expand on that really quickly?
Yeah.
I always like to apply this just to our personal lives as well, because leadership just isn't working in a company. Leadership isn't just a position, right? Leadership has to deal with, how are you a good friend, right? Are you a leader with your friends, or you're a leader with your family? So this particular thing, this recent light bulb moment of, stand up, say something. So say, for example, you notice that a friend is kind of depressed, right? And this person's kind of quiet, say something, say something, say that you're concerned. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because you never want to regret something. If you see, someone on the street, walking by you, you know what I mean? It appears to be something wrong with them. You know what? Don't just walk by and go, oh, you know what? Someone else will take care of them. Ask them, are they feeling ill? Do they need help? Is that I think that particular thing about standing up and saying something and doing what is right is that, don't think the next person's going to do something. Yeah. Don't, be so concerned about, what the repercussions are going to be. Is that at some point in your life, you have to decide, hey, listen, am I going to do what's right? Or am I going to worry about what everybody else has to say? So I think it applies to everything in our life, Brendan. It's just that, who are you going to be? Are you going to be a stand-up person? Or are you going to be someone that just kind of blends in and, just hopes everybody else is going to do something about it?
Yeah, very true. You can't sit back and be passive and just expect the next person to handle the issue. You got to involve yourself in, whatever it is. If, it's kind of like there's that old story about you're driving. I heard a story about there was a teacher that taught a class all semester long on how to be good people and how to do the right thing and everything that they should be doing. Well, then the day that the final came along, the teacher planted different people throughout the campus before they would get to the class that needed help and they were going through struggles. And most everybody from the class was in such a hurry to get to the class that they just ignored the people along their path and hurried to get to the class. Well, when they got to the class, the teacher said, you know what, all of you failed because you didn't help the people along the way, which was the whole point of this class all semester long.
Wow. What a powerful exercise.
Yeah. But
that is very, very interesting.
Yeah, it just illustrates the point of what you're saying, that you got to help people and you got to involve yourself, and you can't just sit back and, wait for the next person to take care of it. Even if it's going to, be a little bit of an inconvenience, you got to step up and you got to help people.
That's a great example, Brent. I appreciate sharing that. Now I'm my eyes wide open.
Oh, yeah.
Even more.
Yeah, definitely.
Even more.
Yeah, so
I love that example. But yeah, you know what? Just everybody, I'm speaking to myself too, is that how can we improve in our leadership? How can we be more kind to people? How can we, look for opportunities just for a helping hand? It isn't big things we have to do. It's little things that makes such a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what is one aspect of leadership that you're most excited about right now?
I am super stoked about collaborations. I was thinking about this today. We've been connected for a long time, on social media. And again, I appreciate this opportunity to talk with you, is that this is a collaboration, right? Is that we're both in leadership. We both do different things, and that, we're here supporting one another, right?
Yeah.
So the thing that I'm excited about, that I've rocking and rolling in 2018 is, doing different speaking engagements with people that do stuff similar to me, but a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I mentor people on, Brandon, is really don't go through this journey alone. Don't think that you're a know-it-all. Mm-hmm. Don't think that, you can do this thing called life alone. Is that I encourage people to really take a look at people that they respect, other leaders that they look up to, even if they've never met each other before, right?
Yeah.
We've never talked before.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We've never talked before, and we're doing this together, and I hope that we do something else together in the future.
Absolutely.
That take the leap, reach out to people and say, hey, listen, I respect what you do. I do this. How can we be stronger together and do something together and make our message, double, triple powerful, what I mean? And reach an audience, much bigger than what we could do alone. And so I'm really excited about it because people that I, would least expect that I would do some stuff with, have reached out to me. I'm reaching out to them. And it's just an awesome thing to have people on the same page doing stuff and wanting to get the great message out about leadership and other topics together.
Yeah, I agree. I love collaborating. I think that along the lines of what you're saying, that a lot of times people think that if you're one person and you're working with one other person, it's either 1 minus 1 where you're going to lose out because you're working with somebody else, or it's 1 + 1 = 2. But I think it's more like 1 + 1 = 4 because there's that I mean, mathematically it doesn't work, obviously, but it's the principle behind it that there's that collaboration and you expand and you can grow because of that. And I like what you're saying, that, two people working together to share the message is a lot more powerful than one person in the collaboration effort.
Yeah, let me break it down. A lot of people are like, oh, that's my competition.
Yeah, exactly.
We have to get away from that. And a lot of people, are getting that and saying, you know what, you're right. You know what, there's enough business, there's enough things for everybody. Is that really, it is about collaboration and we are stronger together. So so that's what I'm most excited about 2018 is opportunities to have all of our voices grow and be shared out, a common message, but in our own unique way.
Yeah, very neat. Now, friends, if you think that we've been learning a lot from Cynthia so far, hang on, because we've got a lot more in store in the speed round coming up right after we take a quick break for our sponsors.
Most great leaders go through years of trial and error, classes, and on-the-job training before becoming great leaders. However, that's not required for everyone. You can learn the principles great leaders live by and start living them today. In the book, Become the Leader You Are Meant to Be, Brandon explains basic leadership principles to help you become a great leader now. He also shares his experiences and experiences of others so you can learn from their examples. And finally, he explains practical steps you can take now to improve your leadership. This great book is yours absolutely free. just by visiting leadershipdoneright.com/ebook giveaway. So check it out today for your free copy.
All right, welcome back. Cynthia, are you ready for the speed round?
Okay, Brandon. Bring it on.
All right. Who is the one leader you look up to the most and why?
Okay. Lots of leaders I respect, but the leader, which I talked about earlier, is my cross-country coach from 30-something years ago because of the fact of he's consistent. The person that, has made the effort to keep connected, communicates, always someone that lifts me up and gives me and gives reciprocal support. I give it to him now and he gives it to me. So he's a constant. So, someone like that. There's other, well-known leaders out in the world that I love, Tony Robbins and Robin Sharma. But you know what? I love real people that, make things happen in our lives each and every day. So that's my answer to that.
Awesome. What's the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
That life is urgent, meaning this is that, life can shift in a second for you, Brandon, for me, for all of your listeners out there, meaning this is that I used to be a total workhorse, meaning this, like 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Is that career, is that's what it really was about for a long time. And due to, people that have, I've lost in my life, people that have gotten ill and that sort of thing, it really gave me a gut check, really gave me, a kick in the duff, as I always like to say, that, career isn't everything, is that, there's more to career. Make sure that you take care of yourself, make sure that you have friends, have fun, is that, there's never a balance, but creating a harmonious life, between work and play and, relationships and stuff like that.
Yeah. What's a personal habit that contributes to your success?
Fitness. Taking care of myself is that, that is something that I've been passionate about through all the years, is that, it's just the number one thing that I recommend for everybody, and we're all leaders, is that, start your day with some sort of exercise, whether it's walking, whether it's jogging, whether it's lifting weights, that sort of thing, is that it reduces stress. It's very therapeutic when you need it, knocking out some reps on weights or going for a nice couple-mile run or something like that. I use it for reflection time. You know what? Those are the best times when I need to think about something. I go for a run or lifting some weights or something. And it helps me work through some things. So I would say that is my number one thing, is that it all starts with self-care. So that would be my number one tip. You want to improve your life, improve your health and fitness, and you're going to see things totally open up even more for yourself.
Absolutely. That's a great habit. If you could recommend one book for our listeners, what would it be and why?
This is such a hard one because I read a lot, and what? There's going to be maybe assumption, maybe or not, that I'm going to say a leadership book, but I'm going to say Tony Robbins, Robin Sharma, everything. I'm just a huge fan of those two, and they've always been people that I really loved. But I'm going to do something different, an old book that I always go back to. Okay. Because I'm not going to do the hottest and the greatest hot seller. Is that it's going to go back to self-care, because I think as leaders is that it all starts with us, and that we have to walk the walk for our team members, for people that we lead. So it's called Take Time for Your Life by Cheryl Richardson. It's an oldie, but I go back to it all the time, meaning this. It goes through everything about, getting, you on the top of the list first. You need to take care of yourself before you can lead anybody else. Stay focused in on your priorities, meaning this, what are your values? If you don't, regularly check that kind of stuff, Brandon, is that, again, some things can go off track. You can become less humble. You know what I mean? It talks about having a soulful community, having a great inner circle network. Super important. In that if you really take time for your life and really get, the foundation, I like to call it the foundation set in your life. If you have good people around you, you take good care of yourself, that sort of thing, it's going to translate into better leadership. You're going to be able to lead your team members more. They're going to respect you more because they say, wow, this person takes care of themselves. They're not a lunatic. You know what I mean? Acting crazy out there. So I really do believe, and before it would be like a leadership book. This, is basically a personal development book that basically gets you back to the basics and, laying the foundation. You have to have a strong foundation before you can do anything else.
That's awesome. That sounds like a great book, and I'm going to have to check that out now that you mention it. So it sounds awesome. It's
an oldie, but it's a goodie. It really is good.
That's great. On a lighthearted note, what is your favorite hobby?
Oh, my favorite hobby. I'm going to have to go back to exercise. You know what I mean? I love it. And being outdoors, so, walking around, exercising, that sort of thing, anything outdoors, exploring, that sort of thing is that I really do enjoy that. If I didn't do what I did now, I'd probably be a personal trainer or, like that. Run a fitness center or something like that. Okay.
That's really neat. I am right there with you. I love the outdoors. Anything outdoors is just right up my alley. So that's awesome.
Exactly. Get out of the house.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, Cynthia, thank you so much for participating in this interview and taking time out of your busy schedule to do this interview today. I've really enjoyed this, having this conversation with you and learning more about you and just having this collaboration effort. As we're nearing the end of this interview, can you please let our listeners know where they can connect with you and where they can find out more about you?
Absolutely. First, I want to say thank you so much, Brandon. So much enjoyed this. I look forward to doing future stuff with you.
Absolutely.
The listeners can reach out to me at smartchic.me. I'll spell that. It's SmartChic.me. And I do, laser focused mentoring for personal development, business branding, and business strategy. And you know what? There's all different types of motivational stuff on my website. And you can connect with me on social media all through there. So I appreciate the opportunity, Brandon. This was a fun conversation with you today.
Well, thank you. And I will definitely put the link to your website on the show notes so that any listener out there that wants to connect with you, they know exactly where to go to connect with you. And I hope that it'll be a great opportunity for the listeners out there because I know I've learned a lot from you and I know they definitely will as well. So, Cynthia, before we go, I'm going to ask you one final question. We've been talking a lot about, where you came from and how you've arrived at where you're at now. But if you could go back in time and give yourself advice to when you first started your leadership journey, what would it be and why?
Let's see. I would say that, taking opportunities earlier. You know what I mean? That there's a lot in reducing the noise around you. People telling you, oh, you know what? You've worked here. You know what? You're doing so well here. So if opportunity that you're really, really looking to do. And so for mine, for example, Brandon, was going into entrepreneurship. You know what I mean? Is that, just go for it, and don't listen to the world, right? Is that you want to get smart advice, you want to get the right mentoring and coaching, but don't wait. You know what I mean? Don't wait. I wish I had done the entrepreneurial thing maybe even a little bit earlier. So just write it down, get a plan together. And as I said at the beginning of this podcast, go for it. You got to go for it because you got one life.
Yeah.
One life. And it's most important that you do, what makes you happy. So if you've got something you want to do, get started now.
Yeah. And it goes back to what you were saying before that our life is, it's short and we got to make the most of it now. And, if your desire is to go into entrepreneurship, then don't hesitate. Just step up and do it right now. And, let the cards fall as they may, but make your path ahead of you.
Exactly.
So, well, thank you again. I really appreciate your time and your willingness to do this interview.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much, Brandon. Have a great day.
All right. Well, thank you, friends, for listening to this episode of Leadership Done Right podcast. You can check out the show notes for this episode at leadershipdoneright.com/podcast episode 33. As I mentioned before, I'll include in the show notes how you can connect with Cynthia and a lot of the other information that we've discussed here in this episode. If you'd like to listen to the next episode of this podcast, please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever other podcast platform you use. You can also check out the full list of episodes and platforms with this podcast at leadershipdoneright.com/LDR podcast. I'd also like to ask you a special favor. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you go to iTunes to write a review of this podcast with your feedback. I read every review and will do my best to make this show the best that it can be based on your feedback. That will also increase the visibility of this podcast and help other great listeners like you to hear about it. Thanks again for listening. My goal is to help you become a great leader. Now go and be the best leader that you can be.